All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Genesis Science Fiction radio show, a service of the Black Science Fiction Society.com website. Tonight is, I even forgot to look up the date because we're technically discombobulated. Today is September 25th, 2015, and our special guest tonight is Jeffrey Morris, and he's a writer, director, production designer, probably more things than that, but he's also the founder of FUTUREDUDE Entertainment. And FUTUREDUDE is one word. So if you want to go check him out online, he's also on Facebook. Just search for his page, FUTUREDUDE Entertainment. Jeffrey, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Good. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me.
And we were talking a little bit beforehand. Jeffrey's coming up to us from the Great North, St. Paul, Minnesota, correct?
Eden Prairie, Minnesota is on the west side.
Oh, Eden Prairie is great. All my tech people are there. I get all my discs that people try to destroy so people don't find their porn. That's where we send all our discs. The people in Eden Prairie also handle a lot of the black box. What are they called? On-track systems. They do a lot of black box data recovery up there in their clean room. So, yeah, and I have a friend who's not too far from there. Well, welcome to us. How's your weather? Is it cooling down already?
No, not really, actually. No, we've got pretty good. We had a lot of rain, but it's still warm. It's still good.
All right, well, hopefully we're supposed to, I know in West as well, we're supposed to have warmer than normal temperatures this winter, but maybe higher than normal precipitation. So I guess we're going to have a wet, rainy day. So anyway, did you grow up in that area?
No, I didn't actually. I was born where you are. I was born in Chicago, but when I was about a year old, we moved to the Phoenix area. I lived in Phoenix until I was a teenager, and then we moved back to Illinois, and then I went to high school and college in Central Illinois, kind of that area. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And so, right now, I think the things that people, if they know you at all or do some quick looking, they're going to find, your directorial, your things, the production company, and then, the writing. Were any of those kinds of creative skills, endeavors, whatever you want to call them, did any of those manifest early with you, or were they things that came up later?
I really made the decision. This is what I wanted to do when I was about 11, 12 years old. So in that zone.
Wow.
It was the heyday of the 70s were just a fantastic time for film. I really, and especially, I really am a big fan of the pre-Star Wars sci-fi. I think it's really the good stuff that happened back then. And I very much inspired by movies, that during that time also, like Superman the movie, Close Encounters, Star Trek the Motion Picture, all that stuff that was happening around that time, late 70s. And I just thought it was so cool. And I knew I wanted to do it. I knew I wanted to make movies. And so, but I didn't want to make movies that were about fantasy. I always thought stories like Star Wars is kind of, I call them fantasy, but it is science fiction. There's no real science in there. But I also kind of parallel track my interest in film and old TV shows. I also really like real science. And so I think I was actually more passionate about real science than I was in the fiction. And the Apollo program was going on at the time, and we were, one of the small trials of the Apollo program was going on. I was really, really excited to see those rockets go to the moon, those astronauts bounce around the surface, the river, and all that stuff. And I was like, that is what I'm doing when I grow up. And then, for some reason, I kind of figured out by the mid-70s that it wasn't going to happen. And I was really bummed out about it. And, because I think what happened to me is that I watched the kids around me, and the kids were much more interested in playing around with Star Wars action figures and X-Wings and that sort of thing, which was fine, which is cool. But they didn't understand my interest in playing around with a limb or a lunar model,
Right, yeah.
They get it. They were like, why, and I was like, the guys are the real stuff,
All of those things also were big drivers of my interest. I started reading sci-fi probably, first couple years, early years of 1960. And so I was reading a lot of the Golden Age stuff, and there were the hard sci-fi guys, R.C. Clarke, and even some of the Heinlein stuff was more science-y than it was baby fiction or young adult fiction. So those kind of movies always attracted me. And 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's really only, I think, 3 little non-science following glitches. Like when the guy sucks food up a straw, when he quits sucking, it goes back. That's mad with that. There's not a lot you can do with that kind of thing on the airplane. Exactly. I mean, what are you gonna, or pretending you're on the moon? Those guys were walking like in 1G, and so now the cool thing is, your missive about current filming technology, both in special effects and in computer-generated effects, are well taken. I forget what movie it was, but they had a movie where they had a lunar soundstage, and what they did was they had really large helium balloons on a green rope attached to the astronaut. So when they jumped up and down, they came. And so even from the Earth to the Moon, it was from the Earth. Yeah, is that what it was? Okay. Yes, and it's one of the miniseries, the Tom Hanks miniseries on HBO. And what they actually did is these huge helium balloons with, and what they had was the straps were black, actually. They were they black? Okay. Yeah, the black background. And so what happened is they balanced out the astronauts, the actors' gait. They bouncing around in 1/6 gravity. It was really cool. So that was really good. It's actually brilliant. And that's one of those total, low tech solutions that just that to me is really fascinating. And I have to tell you, I'm really excited for the new Star Wars film simply because they're going back to so many more physical effects as opposed to computer generated stuff. Because I really think the CG is not quite as good as people think it is. These days. Well, no, it wasn't. It looked like those first 3 movies were cartoonish looking. The digital effects were not. They just weren't that sophisticated. They weren't that high res. It looked like when you see these broad shots of the cities and stuff, it looked like Sid Meier's Sin City. And that's what I always felt like. I always felt like the Star Wars prequels looked like a video game. That's what they reminded me of. Exactly. And it also really hurt the actors, I think, to a large degree, because the actors weren't able to, they weren't really interacting with anything. They weren't physically there. Now, we went through this, obviously, on our set with our movie that we just made last year, Oceanus, but I tried to build a physical set that they actually could interact with and be within. We'd actually talked about it, which makes you make a virtual set. But the actors didn't have anything that, there's no way you could actually believe it. It's nothing for them to interact with, and I think that really hurt the Star Wars prequel. So it's very exciting that they're going back to some tried and true filmmaking with the new Star Wars film, that kind of thing. So it's really cool. So but to speak to what you're saying, I'm a big fan of Arthur C. Clarke, a fantastic writer. I also enjoyed Ben Bova, Larry Niven, guys like that. That's the stuff that I really loved growing up. It's cool. That's what. I grew up with them, and I literally grew up in just slightly post Golden Age, but all of those guys were well established. And my dad was a sci-fi fan. And this is where I got lucky. He had a subscription to Analog and whatever came before that, Amazing Tales, whatever. And there's all these books in the house. And so, of course, I was a pretty avid reader, and I got to read those things. So, I never thought I would write anything, ever. And yet, in 2001, I write my first novel. And it turns out to be more along the lines of, hard sci-fi or at least believable sci-fi with kind of like, okay, let's take a good example is Michael Crichton. Okay, so he takes Jurassic Park and he has one speculative thing in it, and that is being able to recover DNA, which has been dried up and whatever, and to recreate dinosaurs. The rest of it is today's sociology, today's psychology, today's culture. How would San Diego react with a Tyrannosaurus Rex running around town. Okay, that's, but it's grounded in, you have the one speculative thing, but you build the entire story around reality. And I love that kind of stuff, and that's what made me write, because that's the kind of story I wanted to write. You probably don't know, but I mean, my premise is, what happens in America when they find out that black folks have been secretly living on the backside of the moon since before Neil Armstrong got there. One premise like that, and it's something that had never been done before, but that was what I wanted to write, a big story. So those are the kinds of things that I want to do. I of course, I don't have the chops to do a sci-fi film, like you can do, and you have done, but maybe one day, But let's get back to your early times. Okay, so you're jazzed about our culture at that time, and who wouldn't be? You have a number of sci-fi shows on TV. You have all of these really cool movies coming out with very, very innovative visuals, and so you mentioned it as preteen, but as you're going along, as you're aging out, did you manifest any desire to do it? Did you try any film? I mean, where were you that early in life in terms of where your head was at, and what you may have done creatively?
Well, I started when I was somewhere between 7th and 8th grade. My cousin and I started shooting our own little Super 8 movies. We did that what they call kit bashing, where you build a structure and then you go and you take model kits and you do little bits and pieces on there. And you make your own big spaceships and stuff like that. We did some fiber optics. We did some lighting within the structures, and we made big spaceships, and we filmed scenes, visual effect shots of our spaceships flying through, and everything. And later on, we made a film. I think about a year later, we did a movie about a paper airplane having a dogfight with an F-16, and that was a lot of fun. We actually won a little award for that one, and it was like I studied the way a lot of films were being made. Like the movie The Right Stuff was an influence for me, and I looked at how they did some of their stuff. They were very low tech effects, lots of airplanes on wires with raw model rocket engines in them, and all these sure. We did a lot of stuff like that. We would do shoot the film and then take a needle and process the film and then bring it back and then take a little needle and scratch the film to make your laser effect. Stuff like that. It was kind of fun. Those are definitely a huge influence. I think also for me, I got a hold of a book, The Art of Star Wars, the first film of A New Hope, and I got that book and I poured through that, and that was where. Oh, you're dropping out a little bit. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see. I don't know. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Yeah, that's much better. Yeah. All right. No, I was saying that I was, the thing I did kind of prior to trying to make my own little Super 8 movies, I kind of taught myself how to draw and illustrate, especially designing spaceships and, moon bases. Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. All of the locales, all of the, yeah. So it was, that was a big deal for me. It's like I think, I don't know if you hear me, but I said that I had grabbed a copy of The Art of Star Wars. Actually, my aunt bought it for me as a gift, and I took that book and I did a lot of sketching, trying to copy the stuff that Ralph McQuarrie and Joe Johnston, guys like that were doing. And so I really studied the production process and kind of how they were doing those movies, and I thought, something I'm going to make my own, and I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to illustrate like this. And so that was something that I did, kind of alongside my own kind of personal filmmaking stuff I was doing. So that was kind of the early stuff. And I certainly was always thinking of stories. It was always interesting to me to kind of, I really wanted to tell stories, but my stories were set, in the solar system. For me, I was always like, can I tell a story that's set on the moon, or set, on the moon of Jupiter, or set, that was far more interesting to me than being way out in the universe somewhere, or out in the galaxy. Yeah. Doesn't that kind of speak back to your wanting to do kind of more along the real science of science fiction? Yeah, well, once you start leaving the solar system, it kind of starts turning into real fantasy in a way. It's kind of like, well, how are we going to get out there? It's like I felt like we were skipping whole chapters. Like, I was a kid who I absolutely loved the original Star Trek when I was a kid, but I was one of those kids who watched that show, and I was frustrated because I was like, well, I want to see Earth. As a kid, right, let's see Earth. I want to see what does Earth look like in the 23rd century? And then I was always like, and also, you guys skip so much of this. How did we get to Star Trek? I want to know how we got to it. So those
all right,
yeah.
And they gave you just little hints, like what was it? They did Star Trek First Contact, where supposedly, our first attempt at warp drive is, seen by. Did the Vulcans give us stuff, or did they not give us stuff, or did Zephyr Cochrane, stay sober long enough to make good stuff? All.
But I think the thing to me is like I was like interested in the 60s view of it. That was kind of the 90s view of Star Trek. You know what I mean? To me, I don't even count that. It's like I know it's part of the canon, but to me, it's like. If you go back to the 1960s vision, you connect the 1960s to what was really going on in the space program, with what was depicted on the original Star Trek, and you connect those two together, right? If you kind of think about it from a context back then, right? No Next Generation, no movies, no TV shows, but you just additional TV shows. You just go back and say, all right, this show with Spock and Kirk and McCoy, and then subsequent cartoons. How did that story connect to our world right now? At that time, that's what I was really thinking.
Of course, everybody's always talking about the things we're going to have. You go to the World's Fair and you see flying cars, you see video phones, you see this, that, and see, what people don't realize is we're never going to have flying cars unless we keep people in Florida and Wisconsin from driving them. Your whole mission about the possible and the connectedness is that has driven you to where you are today. And then you have discussions about having a moon base. Well, did you see the movie The Martian? Did you mention that you saw it, or did you read the book?
No. I've read the book, and I was just saying that the movie The Martian that I kind of wished had been around since the 60s. To me, even 2001, which I love, is one of my probably top 3 movies of all time. It still had to have sort of the alien monolith aspect of some of those things to it. I love it because it did literally tell a story that could happen. It doesn't have to have any sort of made-up fantasy element to it. Just tell me a story that literally could happen, and that's what you got going on with The Martian, which is cool. And that's what I was trying to figure out. That I think was fun. If that had movies like that for a long time. That's all I'm saying. I think there's been a whole genre of just tell, real things, real stuff.
Yeah, and so this is the kind of writing you would do. And let's talk about your writing for a while. When you started writing, your stories were based in, again, more the science portion of science fiction. Were they driven by the possible? Were they driven by a sensibility of the possible, more so than just being completely? Let me ask you this: did you ever think of any kind of plot where we get visited by other civilizations?
Absolutely not. No interest in me at all.
Okay. See, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about it. To me, I think that people go, well, okay, I'll give you an example. And this is going to probably, people are going to go, what? You didn't like that? But when I was a kid, and I saw Star Wars, right? I'm going to kind of filter Star Wars through my mind as a 5th grader watching it who had studied a lot of science growing up.
Sure.
And, I watched Star Wars and I was like, well, are those guys, well, who are these people? The first question I had, I was like, well, is this in the future? Why are there humans? They're humans, but are these people from Earth, or are they saying that this is some parallel evolution? I know that I thought about it way more than most people would, and I know that people would be rolling their eyes going, why do you think I just enjoyed the movie? But the thing that happens when you have a science context for things, right, which happened for me at a very early age, I had to look at it and then filter, right? And so then I eventually had to get, I see that long time ago in Galaxy far away. Okay, this must be, okay, so the beginning of the movie. Okay, these are humans. So let's
these questions. I was never thinking of it. Then I go, okay, wait a minute. On this one planet, you have the Tusken Raiders, the Jawas, they don't go in the cantina, and you've got all these different species all in there. And I would go, wait a minute. These guys all can breathe the same air. They all can handle the same gravity. They all clearly evolved on different planets, different places. And they came together, they can communicate enough that they can talk to each other, and they all want to sit in the bar and drink. You know? Okay? So, like, for me, I was like, what is this? You know, and so I guess, like, I wanted to tell a story. I was going, what, you know, like I've done aliens one time. I've done other life forms one time in a story we did called Slingshot. And when I did that one, it was based upon the idea that Carl Sagan, some colleagues, they talked about what if life were involved in the atmosphere of a gas giant like Jupiter. Right? Sure. And they were talking, and this was literally, they were saying, if we took the chemical soup that seemed to existed on the primordial Earth, and that those same, organic compounds exist in the atmosphere of Jupiter. So if that's there, and then you get light heat, you mix it all up, could there be life forms that exist? And Jupiter doesn't have a solid surface, so the idea is like, could there be things that live their entire lives aloft, right? That was fascinating. Now that to me is a far more interesting alien, right? And they also postulated these things would be miles across, huge creatures that perhaps use light to communicate with each other, or radio signals, or who knows, right? Who knows how they would exist? But they had nothing to do with humanoid life. They had nothing to do with the way we think. They had nothing to do with the way we live. These things are completely 100% alien. That to me is a really, really fascinating thing. And so that's the kind of alien that I would do, because I actually believe that's the kind of alien that might exist, right? The idea of a Chewbacca, I guess there could be Chewbaccas out there in the world, in the universe, right? But I think that the idea, the odds of them are running into this, whatever, is pretty slim. But us finding microbes on Mars, or bacterial mass, or even intelligent, life forms on one of these other planets, they could, I think that's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. But I don't think they're going to be anything like us. And I don't think they're going to think like us, or feel like us, or any of these sorts of things, So, I don't know if I answered your question or not, but there's an issue. No, I mean, that's the perfect answer, because I'll tell you the thing that I say when I'm feeling kind of, excuse the expression, assholeish. I always ask people in a movie, when we're watching a movie or a TV show, so how the F do these people out in this other, solar system, why do they speak English? And why are they bipedal? So I think we're similar in temperament in terms of the creation of the other, or the creation of a creative universe. Because similarly, I'm not so enamored of creating some sort of alien out of whole cloth. I'm really interested in how we get where we're going to get. Like, one of the things I deal with in the next series of books that I'm writing is if we try to find life in our galaxy, and this is assuming the one assumption is that we can travel enough to get around, travel fast enough to get around. But the thing is, I happen to know that finding other life is such a crapshoot. I mean, it's almost like playing Powerball, because you have the equal chance of losing whether you play or not. Here's the thing. There's a good possibility that there's life all throughout the entire universe, right? Okay, if you think about it, right? There's a planet, right? Okay, the question is, will that life mature to intelligence, right? And like I said, we can find things that could be on par with the plants, or on par with a bacterium, or on par with an amoeba, right? Those sorts of things. Think about our own planet. Think about all the different types of life. How many life forms on this planet are bipedal, humanoid life, or simian? The majority. The vast majority. It's just that we happen to be sort of skewed and a little bit, I guess we'd say, simian-centric, right? Because that's who we are. So we tend to think of life in the universe as being similar to us, because we're the intelligent life, we're the top of the food chain on this planet, right? But if you think about it, what about dolphins, or whales, or an octopus, or a squid. Squid are very intelligent. I mean, as a matter of fact, I've seen some people theorize that in the far future that it may be the next form of intelligent life on our planet are based more on cuttlefish or squid, things like that. After we're long gone, there could be, intelligent, highly intelligent civilizations based on creatures like that. So the point is, if we go to now what I do realize, in defense of all the movies there's only so far you can go back in the 1960s to depict an alien, right? There's only so far. Oh, sure. We're just getting to a place where a big floating gas bag that's 2 miles across, you could actually depict that using computer graphics or something, right? Whereas, before it was kind of like, well, we need an alien. We'll get Bob in here and stick some stuff on his forehead. Or like a voyage to the bottom of the sea where they would put someone in a seaweed suit. A man in a seaweed suit. Right, exactly. So, it's just literally, your limitations. And I get that. I completely get that. And I'll tell you, like when it comes to Star Trek, I absolutely love the character Spock. Spock is fantastic. And do I believe there could be Vulcan-like civilizations out there? Sure. Absolutely. Hell, there could be, there's so many stars in the universe and planets in the universe, there could be something very akin to humans out there. There's some, but I don't think it's close by and one solar system over, probably not, Right, yeah. So anyway, I don't know how we got off on this part, but no, I mean, this is yeah, where's the writing, and what are the, what is it that trips your trigger, so to speak. Sure. And so that makes entirely too much sense. One of the things that I also dealt with is, okay, let's say that there are other creatures who have achieved the same level or even a greater level of technological achievement as we have, and they're out in the galaxy. Then it becomes a case of timing. Okay? They could be 1 million years behind us, 2 million years ahead of us. Maybe they're just little furry creatures right now, but they will mature into tool building people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So timing, I think, is the great leveler too, because trying to find somebody who's currently at a similar level as we are right now is that's also that crapshoot too. Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. It's totally. And there's so many factors, and there's so many factors in life in the universe, the concept of life in the universe, and lining it all up and having it all unifying things. It's very complex, but it is fascinating. And if someone asked me a question, actually, I think it was just that question this morning when we did a meeting with one of our investors. He asked me, "Do you believe that there's life in the universe?" And I said, "Absolutely. There has to be. I think there's life in our solar system. The question is it life as we know it? Right? And I think it's could it be carbon based? Probably. Does it have DNA? Does it have that's the question. That's the thing. And that to me is what science fiction really wrestles with. Now the other thing is though, how do you tell exciting stories that the average person wants to watch about those sorts of ideas? And that's where the challenge comes in. And for me, just because I think about these ideas and everything, I recognize that 99.9% of the public thinks this is boring as hell. So they want to see some stuff blow up, and I get it. And you know what? I'm happy to do that in my movies too, because I like seeing stuff blow up sometimes too. So you know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing. So I think as far as the influences go, let's go back to that. I guess as far as influences, for me, the real science, the real stuff. It's the reason why I wanted to get into making movies is because two reasons. One, I was hoping to influence the culture toward a more realistic, plausible potential future where we get out there and actually do things, solve problems. It's not just about technology to me. It's also about the idea, can we make the world a better place? See, when I thought about, it's interesting what you said about the year 2000, because I think I was a little different than a lot of the kids. Because for me, so I'm in my late 40s, but like the kids, me and my friends used to talk all the time about what's life going to be like in the year 2000. We would talk about that, and it was fascinating. And one thing I didn't realize, I was talking with Doug Drexler, who was one of the visual effects artist production guys for Star Trek, a lot of Star Trek shows. And he and I were talking, and he was telling me about how the World's Fair back in the 1960s really influenced Star Trek. And I didn't
realize until I started looking. I was like, my gosh, this all came from the World's Fair, right? And just like Star Trek influenced people like me, the World's Fair influenced Star Trek. So people were thinking about the future. But see, the thing is, I think at that time we weren't this whole Terminator, Mad Max, Blade Runner, dark future. I guess we all considered that as a possibility. But I think the hope was that this future view was going to make a better place for everyone. Everyone was going to get along. We're going to figure it out. We're going to solve poverty and hunger and disease and
quit hating each other and making wars and fighting over, all these religions fighting over who has the best imaginary friend and all of these other things. You're absolutely right. I mean, yeah. That was the picture that the World's Fair would paint. But then, even common culture, regular films, not non-science fiction films. Okay, you have a lot of war films. You have a lot of, look at all of the episodes of, let's say, The Outer Limits. Out of all of the episodes in The Outer Limits, a lot of them were right out of the noir sensibility. Because I think that you have the typical Hollywood movie arc where things start out grim and you have people who are working hard to get past all of these different difficulties and challenges, and then maybe there's that glimmer of hope at the end, which was the original ending of Blade Runner, and far too many people hated that, and of course then they took out that driving through the woods ending, but you're right. I think balancing between the two, I think people's sensibilities tend toward the trending of their current culture, and the trend of our current culture on this planet, from country to country to country, it's getting grimmer rather than more enlightening. So maybe
I would completely agree. It seems it's funny. I have a son who's 17, really really great guy. He likes a lot of he grew up watching. I showed him a lot of the old sci-fi stuff that I like, which is very very cool for me because my kids have kind of validated for me that stuff wasn't really bad. They just because they have like today's visual effects, they're like the stories are great. They love the stories. But what's interesting to me is that when he gets into news stories or stuff nowadays, in his mind, it's like society has to be completely torn apart for there to be any hope. So his hope comes from post-apocalyptic stories, right? Which for me feels like I get it and I'm on his side about it, but I will tell you it's very sad to me that our world has gotten to a place where we have to find hope in post-apocalyptic vision. Does it make sense? It's like gosh, where is that? What happened? I mean, there was a time, and you got to go back 30, 40 years ago, but it was like people were like, the future's going to be great. The future's going to be positive. We're going to work this crap out. We're going to get better. We're going to get better. We're not going to get worse. I would never have ever imagined if someone had said to me 20 years ago, hey, did you know in 2015 there's going to be a black president? I'd be like, really? Right? And then absolutely. And then they said, but there aren't going to be any flying cars and no jetpacks, and people are going to be a lot dumber, and more of the country's going to believe that evolution didn't happen, and all these things are going to, like I would have been like, what? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't. I would have actually believed it was less likely that we'd have a black president than that we would have our culture doing the sort of backward slide that it's doing right now. Right? And that's something that's right. I'm kind of thinking about. I'm going, well, why is this happening? We can get into that. That's a completely different conversation. But the point is, these positive visions of the future are they're hard to come by. At this point. And so I do have a project that I'll tell you about later. But it's kind of I'm looking at the challenge of like how do I tell a positive story about the near future that doesn't have a bunch of violence and a bunch of darkness in it and everything, that actually can provide hope, but also not be hokey and not be shut, all those sorts of things. And you look at the movie Tomorrowland that just came out. I mean, that's a flop, right? And Disney's scratching their heads going, why did this not work? Well, we don't have audiences today that are interested in these positive views. So it's very sad. It's very sad. And I think you're absolutely right that it's a reflection of the reality of where our culture exists right now today.
I saw a movie, and it doesn't have distribution yet, I don't think, but it was by Kevin Wilmot, and it's called Destination Planet Negro. And some black folks get in a spaceship in the 1930s, and it gets caught in a space warp, and they end up in, I think it was 2010. And these guys are wandering around the neighborhood. They go to the barber shop, and they go, "Oh, who's that black guy hanging there? Oh, that's the President of the United States." And they're like, "Get the F out of here," because but the cool part about that is it probably has at least opened up the imagination of some kids who never would have otherwise thought differently had we not had the example of a black president. And to what you're saying about,
of course. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, in common culture, what do we imagine? Well, let's be honest. Our entertainment sometimes skews our perception of what is possible. Not like the Superman movies or anything like that. Because if that cat comes from Krypton and all of that nonsense, that's a whole other story. But when you think about, okay, the reason why Blade Runner is so compelling is because everybody can imagine that happening. Everybody, it takes no stretch. It takes no stretch.
Yeah.
So yeah, your project to try to do something that's completely different without those negative noir image with the negative noir imagery. That's a hell of a project. I mean, that's a big thing because how do you write around all of that?
Yeah, well, and by the way, I love Blade Runner. It's one of that's actually my favorite movies of all time. It's a fantastic film, but and I actually remember watching Blade. To me, Blade Runner, as opposed to being I saw it as a warning of what the future could become. As opposed to it being an example of what the future could become. Because I hope
Sure.
Yeah, watch Blade Runner. I was going, man, I don't know what's there. That's awesome. What do? We got to do everything. It's like, flying car, awesome. But if we got to go through all that, it's got to be that bad for me to get that flying car. I'll pass. That's kind of how I always feel.
Yeah.
Beautiful film. I love that film. But my point, even my movie Oceana, I felt like in order to get the audience to sort of buy in, and what you'll see with our feature film, we could have a global disaster that occurs in the story, and I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen the film.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
I won't. But my point is that even to create a story about people living underwater, we still had to get into a bit of a post-apocalyptic aspect of that. I did that intentionally because I want to bring people in, because what we're going to do with the story is we're actually going to have our human characters have to find the best parts of themselves, have to create a new civilization, and there will be hope. There will be hope. And so I kind of followed my son's model in a way. I took this apocalypse thing and cool technology, future stuff, and I said, all right, we're gonna turn all this on its ear and do something really cool and kind of reboot things with the situation. I think it turns out pretty cool. But that said, I still feel like there's got to be something positive where you don't have to blow up the world or have a plague or have AI to destroy us or all these things that we seem to think are coming. And it's like they just feel inevitable if you look at science fiction. And I think it's possible to tell stories without that. One of the challenges that I've been giving myself these days is to come up with a story that's not like that. And I think I've done it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I call it destruction porn because people are so used to it. I mean, how many people, when people are sit down for a movie, especially a sci-fi movie or speculative fiction or action adventure or whatever the hell they want to call it, if there's not an explosion or a death or something violent or something big and loud in the first 5 or 6 minutes, they tend to really lose interest. So, and let me ask you this question. Don't give away the plot, but you know this about American audiences. You know they have an attention span of 2.5 minutes. You know they've got a collective IQ of nothing. These are the dumbest people in the world because it was to the benefit of the people who run this country to make sure people are as stupid as possible. How do you get over that threshold to be able to provide some really cool entertainment? Because I'm gonna see the movie no matter what because it sounds good, and I want to see how you did stuff, okay?
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna call you on the phone and go, dude, or whatever. But seriously, how do you get, because there are certain expectations the movie-going audience have, and you're not going to meet the usual ones.
Okay, so let me try to explain that. So here's where it is. I mean, first off, there are a couple issues. Number one, right? We have part of the problem is that we have these huge budgets in these movies these days, right? And we have budgets that are so large, right, that it starts to become filmmaking by committee, right? You say, all right, well, we got $150 million budget. So in order to do why is it $150 million? Well, because we've got this actor and that actor needs $20 million. Okay, then we got this other actor, they need $5 million, and then we have right? Then you go, okay, there's that. Then we got these sets we want to build. Then we got these visual effects we want to do, and we have shots in this movie. The visual effects shot alone, visual effects alone budget will be $25 million. You start adding this all up, and me, the producer, I got to make some money over here too, and the director's got to make some money. So we're going to be topping 150, 200 million. Right. Right. What starts to happen is to justify something like that, that's when you're no longer in the realm of filmmaking, you're in the realm of kind of formulaic accounting. Right? Right. And so what you say, so now you have I kind of almost envision it like a boardroom. And you get this whole boardroom, these guys sitting around, and then you get somebody, and they raise their hand, and I represent the chick flick contingent. Okay, so do we have a romance in this story? They raise their hand, right? And then I see the writer sitting at the table. The writer sitting at the table is like, well, I didn't really understand because this movie takes place in over a 5-hour period, and there really isn't time for a romance in it. Yeah, I understand, but if we really want women to come see this film, we got to have some of this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Okay. Then you have the litany. Yeah, you got the litany of the if we want, and so we have to meet the if we want. Yeah, no, I know, and that's got to be aggravating. What do you call it? I also call it wouldn't it be cool if filmmaking. And so it's like I've seen people sit around the table and like there's maybe there was a story, maybe there wasn't, and they sit around and they go, okay, we're gonna do a movie about robots. Okay, great, robots. What's the story? I don't know, but wouldn't it be cool if we had a scene where you had 20 robots run up a hill and then they all shoot their heads come off and they fly at the camera and yeah, that'd be really cool. Right, okay, right. So then I almost imagine like they take these cars with all these different ideas and they're like, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool? And then what happens is they go, all right, how do we connect that together? How do we thread that into a story? Right? Right. And this is what happens when you get to those sorts of budgets. I really do. And I honestly believe that for a lot of people watching movies these days, I hear it. I hear it all the time. People really don't like a lot of the movies, but we're addicted to them. So people still go, even though they don't like the movies. Right? Okay, I'll give you an example. Jurassic World, for example, right? I don't personally, very, very few people I knew lots of people saw it, very few people I knew said they actually liked it. But it's like, you gotta go, it's Jurassic World, you go, right? My theory is that, I think what we have to do is keep the budget lower. And I think that by keeping the budget lower and saying, I'm gonna make a movie, for under $25 million, which is what kind of the spot I want to stay in. I want to do great visual effects. And with the, sets, visual effects, all the techniques and technologies that exist these days, you don't have to spend $200 million to make a cool movie. I mean, at the end of the day, a movie has to stand on good characters, great writing, great acting, real meaty drama, right? I mean, it's really about those people. And the other stuff is like window dressing. And so, to me, if we're trying to, as long as you have a team and you're able to use the technology, the techniques, I mean, you can make great movies on an iPhone darn near these days. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be so big and overwrought. So to me, what I'm going to do is I want to make movies that I want to see. And so, you know something? Unless there's a reason to blow something up in the first 5 minutes, I'm not going to do it. Now, what might happen is, the people who want to see stuff blow up in the first 5 minutes, they probably aren't going to go see my movie. Right. And that's okay, because you know something? I believe that people like me and like you, and I think there are millions of us out there. Maybe not tens of millions, maybe not even hundreds of millions, but if I could find millions, right, and I could get that group to get energized and excited and have them come out for the types of movies that I want to make, I think we can economically pull it off. I think we can make it viable, you know. And I think I can keep making intelligent film that the drama and the characters and the believability ahead of the action and the titillation and the sensationalism. You know what I mean? I think beauty, awe. You know, the thing that I think is missing from movies these days is a real sense of awe. When I was a kid, you know, there were moments where I would watch movies and I would just be blown away. I'd go, wow. I would be inspired. I would go, you know, my jaw would drop, right? I don't feel that seeing movies these days. I don't feel a sense of awe anymore. And that's something that I really want to work toward. And that to me is, like, I'd rather feel a sense of awe than like I watch Transformers or stuff, and if I see one of those films, half the time I don't even know what's going on. You know, you get those fight scenes and battle. I'm like, what is happening right now? The visual effects are moving so fast. Or a movie like Man of Steel, where, you know, the battle that got into toward the end of that film was so relentless and so over the top that I got to a place where I was like, just please, I just want to leave now. I hate it stop.
I know. That's what I call it.
Nothing against anybody who likes that movie. I mean, it's you know, I wanted to like that movie. You know, I loved character Superman, especially, you know, that first Superman movie was really cool. I thought it was fantastic, you know?
Yeah.
You know, but I feel like here we are in a time period where you could actually truly make you believe someone could fly. You truly could have magic around this whole thing. And with the visual effects capabilities. And I watched a movie like that, and I didn't even know the character of Superman watching that film. I didn't care about it. He didn't mean anything to me. You know, it's funny. I wrote an article about that film and on my blog, and I was talking about the idea that, like, when I was a kid watching the original Superman movie, I actually I pretended that I could fly. I wanted to fly after I saw the movie. After I saw Man of Steel, I just wanted to pretend that I could, like, punch somebody 4 miles away and then fly up to them and punch them again, you know? It's like, it was just kind of like, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah, that's what that's where we are now, so.
Anyway, let me do this. We're having, because of the technical difficulties we're having, I want to break this show up into 2 parts, if I could, and then make an arrangement to have you back, because we have to talk about Oceanus. We have to do that, and there's other projects that you're involved with. But Jarvis is in Tennessee, and he's recording the show, and he's in a class. He's in his PhD class.
Wow. Okay.
So I don't want him to get busted out. But let me do this. Can we just call this part 1, the end of part 1, and we'll get back with you. And I